it's quite astonishing how individuals just take what the media, academia, and the gatekeepers have to say as unequivocal fact without even looking or questioning what it is they're being told. Quite crazy how in the information age where you have free public libraries and the internet, that tends to happen. I see this happen a lot in terms of climate change on both sides of the aisle, to be fair. I was conversing yesterday with an individual. They stated to me that they believed in climate change. I said, how so? In a fair way. I was just questioning to see what their evidence was. And he could tell they were not used to being questioned on their opinion. They responded back with, what do you mean? They kind of stuttered. They're just used to saying, I believe in climate change. And then everybody else who they say that to says, oh yeah. But after struggling for a moment, they responded back with that it hasn't snowed or the winter has not been that warm. I let them go on and I was quiet. And then I responded back with, I understand your opinion, but I have to disagree with you. I said, according to NASA, this is their definition. Climate is the average surface temperature in a given area in a 20-year period. Not trying to be an a-hole, I told her. I said, just their definition. And you could tell that she never even heard that before. So she goes around talking about climate change. I'm not picking on her, just a lot of people do this. But she goes around talking about climate change, does not have any evidence to back it up, and believes that a season is what defines climate. So she believes in climate change, but doesn't even know what climate is defined as. And then I responded back with, humans really started using fossil fuels in 1900. That's when Britain started using coal with their steam engines, James Watt, instead of burning wood for their primary power source. Since 1900, there have been no ice ages. But all scientists all across the board, whether they believe in global warming or not, all accept that there have been 7 major ice ages throughout history. All of these ice ages happened before 1900. And she said, what's your source? I sent her an article where it was a New York Times article that New York City froze over in the late 1800s before fossil fuels. And if the premise for climate change is that human activity is what causes it, then how come ever since humans have been using fossil fuels, we've not had ice ages? And I even explained to her, I said, the climate's always been changing. Have you heard of the Sahara Desert? She said she had. I said, well, there used to be the largest river where the desert now is. But desertification, where the desert is literally getting larger, it's still happening today if you look at the desert. But desertification is what caused that river to freeze up, basically. Not freeze up, but the desert to, the river to cease to exist. But the climate's always been changing. And a lot of things contribute to climate. Think about the sun. The rays of the sun. Think about the ground temperature. Think about all those things that contribute. The other question would be that you have to ask yourself, what is CO2? Well, CO2 is mostly water vapor. Like 0.3% of it is actually carbon. A lot of it's just water vapor. When you see, I love how on these media companies, they show these big ass smokestacks, and it looks like they're polluting the planet, when in all actuality, most of that is water vapor coming out of those towers. But, of course, you have the carbon cycle. Living things, they eat food that contain carbon. They contain carbon, they shit out that carbon. That carbon then goes in the ground, and plants use that carbon to produce food through photosynthesis, and then that CO2 produces oxygen. It all cycles around. I also asked her, if Obama really believes in climate change, why would he buy $1 million home on the coast in Miami, Florida? That's going to be the first area to go under. Also, the amount of power it takes to generate that home. And he has a private jet. So if he really believes in climate change, he's being very hypocritical. So does Bernie Sanders. All these motherfuckers like Harrison Ford and Brad Pitt want to tell us about climate change, but they fly around on their damn private jets, and they have huge-ass homes that take more power to... They have to generate more power than the average person's home. That's hypocrisy at its finest. Also, there have been many doomsday predictions. I sent her an article that showed New York Times, Washington Post, Wall Street Journal, all of the newspapers that have been around for a while that have predicted doomsday predictions. It used to be global cooling, you had peak oil, you had all these other things. And there's even a clip of Bernie Sanders saying that in 1990, and this is to a group of school children, that all of the world's vegetation is going to be destroyed. You've had this for years. So what makes this different than that? You could tell she's never heard these counter-arguments. I'm not saying she's a bad person or anything. I'm just pointing out that most people just say they believe in climate change. They're told in school, the media believes it, celebrities believe it, the establishment believes it. They've literally never taken time to learn what climate is, to learn about history of the climate. So how can you say you believe in climate change when you don't even know how climate is defined and you don't even know history of the climate?